how do you have a good experience with the other side if
Yes.
your trajectory of your life, this scroll that they've got set out for you, are
Yeah.
all these horrific things?
Horrific.
And
Yeah.
then once it's ticked off, like,
Yeah.
what happens then?
Hello, lovely. Welcome to Tea with Tui, where I spill the tea on all things spiritual, whether it's psychic insights or spiritual wisdom. Maybe you're here for a good ghost story, some good vibes, or you're simply curious along your spiritual journey and trying to make sense of it all. This is the podcast for you. I am your host and guide, Tui Tikiti, psychic medium, spiritual healer, and founder of Our Rising Academy. I got a great episode ahead, so stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Yeah, when that happened, it was like my whole world came crashing down. I knew that all of the tasks on my to-do list were done. I
Wow.
was completely shattered. For some reason, I feel like I was 18 when I got a reading, but maybe it was later because I remember
Mm.
him and I, the engagement was over.
Yeah,
Um,
was your relationship over?
our relationship was over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw life outside of my first love. Never. I couldn't even, the idea of even being with anybody else other than him was
Hmm.
like foreign to me. I'd been with this
Hmm.
man since I was
Yeah.
like 16 and known him since I was 15. And so it was a
Yeah.
long time. It never computed that there would be anybody else. So when I went and first got my reading, I was in such a bad space or such a bad
Mm.
place that I was forced to have an abortion. So it was like a lot at a very, very, very young age. And so I came into my very first reading going, this chick better tell me something that no one else knows, or I'm just not going to believe anything good about the other side. And
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Because yeah, how do you have a good experience with
after,
the other side if
yes,
your trajectory of your life, this scroll that they've got set out for you, are
yeah,
all these horrific things?
horrific.
And
Yeah,
then once it's ticked off, like,
yeah.
what happens then?
I know, I know. So when I had to abort my son, I was at a stage when I say this, it was very, I had a very a big knowing that it was a boy, um, which is something that I think is pretty common when you're pregnant. But I really had a hard time letting him go. It was actually my dad who said, you need to you can't do this. Like, you're going to be on your own. He's not going to support you, blah, blah, blah. It's the right decision. It's probably the only regret of my life that I have is not having him, but it is what it is.
Mm,
And I remember before going in for the abortion, I remember in my culture, we have this thing where we bury the umbilical cord.
yes, because your heritage is the multicultural, right?
Correct. Yes,
Which
correct.
obviously, being a Kiwi girl, I'm familiar with.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So I remember having a visualization exercise where I said, if I'm going to bury him with anybody, I'm going to bury him here, and it's going to be here, and it's going to be with this person. I told no one, not one soul. And I asked for this person to take care of my boy until I was ready I was in a better position where he would be able to come through. Anyways, I get into this reading and straight away this lady is like, I've got your grandmother here. And I'm like, oh, great. Another one of these people. Okay, yeah. Yes, I have a dead grandmother. I'm like, oh, such a mole, such a mole. The attitude. You would not know the attitude, such bad attitude. And
But,
I was like,
and this is going to lead to future episodes, I know it. But, when you go into a reading for the first time, I don't think it would be uncommon to go with a bit of skepticism.
100%. And I was like fiery. At this point, I was pissed.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I don't know what cards have been dealt, but this is like the shittest hand. Like, something good has got to
Well, she
come.
was about to read your cards,
She
girl.
was
So,
about to read it. Yes. And I feel very lucky because I didn't know that it was clairvoyance at the time. But
mhm.
as I was sitting with her, I could actually see my grandmother standing behind her. And I just assumed it's my imagination because leading up to that point, it had been a long time since I'd really allowed myself to see the other side.
Right.
But I've always had this big sense of knowing. So I see my grandmother. She's telling this lady about how she has my son. And I was like, okay, right. My ears are pricked up at this point. I'm making sure don't give anything away.
Yep.
She tells me how my boy is running around me. And at that time, before she even said that, I could just see this little thing. I didn't know that it was a boy. I just felt, I could just see this thing like running around the room, like running in circles around us. I was like, oh my God, okay, that must be my son. But then I was in such a bad place mentally that I was like, I'm just making this up. Like I'm visualizing it. It's not
Yeah.
even clairvoyance at this stage. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm visualizing it. And she said, and I was really grieving him. And my grandmother said, um, she said, she shows me you burying the umbilical cord right next to her grave under this big tree. And she's wants you to know that she will take care of him until the time is right, that you will be able to watch over him. And I was like, my jaw was on the fucking floor. All ears are wide open now. I am ready to receive whatever this crazy person is like ready to tell me. I wish that I remember my energy still, like I was still depressed, I was still really sad, but I just remember feeling like I'm not crazy, because for so much of my childhood, there were times where I felt really crazy,
Yes.
really crazy. Um,
Yeah.
and so that validation was like next level for me. And she went on
Wow.
to predict a lot of things. She was spot on. She said, and I was such a bitch. I cannot tell you. I feel so sad. I hope that I actually meet her one day to apologize for the way that I was with her, because I had watched hospitality my whole life. I love hospitality, loved
Yeah.
it. She was saying, I see you working in a new field. There's cranes around you. There's all these buildings. She's like, you're going to go into construction. And anybody who's been on hospitality wage understands hospitality wage. She's
Yeah.
like, you're going to earn, I see you earning $2,500 a week, but then you're going to go, the mornings turn into nights and you're going to work nights. And I was like, my dad works in construction, but there's no way. There's no way he doesn't need that. Like, I never worked in construction, never even crossed my mind. All I wanted to know was how my first love and I are going to get back together. That's all I wanted to know.
Literally.
And so disappointed. She was like, you're going to earn crazy amounts of money. You're going to spend it all. Your family's going to be there for you. You'll go study. You'll start getting better, and then you'll hit rock bottom a final time. And she said, once you hit this rock bottom, you'll never look back again. And then she goes, I see you studying. There's three paths. There's two that I can see clearly and one that I can't really see. But at the end of all of these paths, people all around the world will know your name. They'll know your name. You'll walk down the street and people will stop you and say, oh my God, you're so and so. She didn't really know my name then. That's how little information I gave her. And
She didn't
she
even know your
said,
name.
no, I was the worst. Then my inner skepticism, because I didn't like that she's told me I was going into construction. I'm like, oh, she's a dud. Straight away, she's a dud in my head. And
Even though the information she gave you beforehand was quite
correct,
specific. Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. And she says, I see you learning to either become an accountant. There's one where you become an accountant and you earn really good money. You eventually get into real estate. She said, and then I also see you becoming a lawyer, which was what I was considering at the time. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know that I want to do accounting, which my dad always wanted me to do. I actually wanted to go into legal and to become a lawyer. I had this plan that I'd become a lawyer, I'd earn all this money, then I'd invest in hotels. I've always wanted to do real estate from 9, right?
Mhm.
So then she says that to me. She's like, I see you becoming a lawyer. I'm seeing big, huge buildings all around, and your name's on the buildings. I was like, that's my hotels. Okay, she's right. And then she said, then there's another path, but I can't see that path I have no idea what it is. And it feels like you're going to discover it. Like if I was to tell you, you wouldn't believe it. That path is unknown. But at the end of all of these paths, people will know exactly who you are all around the world. And I was like, great, I'm gonna become a millionaire. This is my 18-year-old self
Of
thinking,
course.
I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to have my real estate or my hotel chains. I'm going to earn all of this money. I'm going to be able to give back because when I was really little, I've always wanted to have a charity where I help homeless
Mm,
people get back up on their feet. So I've
mm.
always understood in order to have a big dream like that, I needed to have big capital. And it was always my idea that I had to do it all on my own. Lo and behold, I could not have predicted the path that I'm on right now. Never in a million freaking years. She read me and gave me a reading till my 60s, like right up until my 60s and my 60s, 70s, and 80s. She told me good things, she told me bad things, and not one thing has not come true.
Are you
Not one
serious?
thing. Still to this day, I'm serious. Still to this day, I laugh because I think I was just at such a bad point of my life that I remember just gripping onto every word that she said.
Mm.
Partly too because I was analyzing, like, okay, what are you like reading my micro expressions? Even then, such a bitch. Um, and yeah, and there are still things to this day that she predicted. She was absolutely spot on about the construction. I didn't see it coming. She was absolutely spot on about, so when I worked in construction, I
So
was
you
getting
did
paid.
work in
I
construction.
did. I did
Okay.
about 6 to 8 weeks later, I worked in construction. I spent all my money like she said I would. I worked in construction. Funnily enough, when I worked day shift, I was earning 2,500 my whole packet. Then when I shifted to nights, it was $4,000, and after tax, it was $2,500 in my pocket. Yeah. And I was laughing. I was like, okay, this is my confirmation. And I built up all this money in a very short amount of time, blew the whole lot. I went traveling, drank most of it. I wish that I could tell you I bought a house. Absolutely not, not, not. I it was every single thing that she said came true, and it's still coming true.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
Wild. So sorry for taking us on a tangent there.
No, that was wonderful because how interesting that she was able to predict such specific things.
Yes.
And, when you hear them, not just when you're 18, but when you hear them and you have no understanding of how they're about to unfold for you, it's like,
Yeah.
don't know what to do with this information, delete, distort, get rid of.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And coming into
so
this, like that was my mindset. I wanted every single person to have that experience. Like when I was first
yeah.
started out and I started reading people, I was like, I want them all to experience what she gave me because it was just incredible.
Mm.
I apologize for this interruption. This episode was recorded over 2 days as we were having technical difficulties. I have just decided to run with what we have and fill in the blanks myself with what wasn't recorded via video and unfortunately audio. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode and thank you again for listening thus far.
Weirdly, I've actually never, ever, ever had a reading done. So, okay, well, I have some questions from a virgin who's never had a reading done before.
I love it.
The first question that comes to mind is because I'm a little bit skeptical,
I
okay?
love it.
And I guess it's around like, how do you know if you've decided you're going to get a reading, how
Yeah.
do you know who is a legit person
Mm.
to get a reading from and who's just a fake?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so there's lots of ways in which people find a reader. There's two main ones that I look for when I'm getting a reading. So typically the good ones you're going to hear about word of mouth.
So if you're hearing, oh, go see this person, or oh, I had such a great experience with that person, typically in my industry, that's how you'll find us. Especially with the world that it is today, where there are just so many scammers out there, people really want that more intimate connection that I know somebody who went to you. The other way of doing it is I pay attention to my gut. Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
really good tip. Next question that is burning for me is, do I go into this reading totally poker face, not giving away anything, not sharing any information with you? Is that helpful for you, or do you need to like to know some information? And how do you navigate that as someone who's totally new, wanting to get a great experience?
I love this question because what you're describing is a cold reading, and I really love those. Now, when you're coming into your session, you obviously want to build rapport. So say, hi, how are you? But you don't really want to share much more than that. It's great if you come energetically and emotionally neutral. There's a very big difference between coming from a space of neutrality rather than coming defensive, skeptical, or cynical. Very big difference between the two. You want to get the most out of your reading. So when you are energetically and emotionally neutral, it means that the reader can go about their business, doing their thing, getting the absolute most for you. As it relates to sharing information, you definitely don't want to be sharing your whole life story. In fact, I have had clients that have done this in the past and respectfully have asked them to hush it, because even as a reader, I want to protect the sanctity of our session and make sure that I too am neutral as your reader. I really want to make sure that the client is not persuading me to hear what they want to hear or hear the kind of future that they want to have, because the truth is sometimes that's just not the case. I want to make sure that I'm so accurate in what I'm seeing so that I can give the client the best quality reading, even if that means that it's not necessarily what they want to hear or the path that they thought that they were heading down moving forward. Does that make sense?
Definitely, I like what you've said about there's a difference between being neutral and being defensive and cynical. Would you go to a
Yeah.
reading and like pay and invest time in a service with someone if you're going to be closed off in there?
Yeah, I get that. And I also want to add on, just in case people are not sure what neutral means, it just means to come with an open heart and an open mind. But I do get why people come into readings, cynical and skeptic and defensive, because that was me when I got my very first reading. I was a bitch to that reader. Now, maybe I wasn't as bad as what I think I was, but I remember sitting in that seat feeling sour, having a really horrible taste in my mouth when it came to spirit, because I had already endured so much. I had come into this session going to speak with spirit and being quite defensive about the fact that I've experienced like these horrible things, and I've never had a positive experience with spirit. And so I think that an experienced reader will understand how to read somebody who is like that, but there's always a story behind their defensiveness, their cynicism, their skepticality, if that's even a word. And I think that, yeah, as a seasoned practitioner will know how to deal with that. And you deal with people like that with compassion. For us as readers, we've got to ask really good questions so that we can attack this with an open mind and an open heart ourselves, because we really don't know what your backstory is like. So, a great reader is somebody who's going to ask great questions to spirit, and that's how they're getting really good quality information in return.
Right.
Um,
Okay. That's
Yeah.
a really good point.
But it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, one last question, I guess. What kind of things do you do to be able to tune in, get yourself ready to be open and receive messages like this so you can deliver the best experience to someone you're reading.
I work every single day on my energy, and I'm constantly checking in both with myself and conversing with the other side on the daily. I don't really have to do much before I'm tuning into a client. It might take me a couple of minutes. I'll look at who's next on the list, and I'll have guides on the other side who kind of work a little bit like personal assistants, and they know how I like things done energetically, and they'll organize all of that information before my client sits down. And I've just learned over the years how to make the process so much more efficient and effective. Now, I do cleanse before and after every single reading. However, the way in which I cleanse is going to be completely unique to the day, to the situation, to the energy of the client. And so I'm on the daily living a life where I am energetically showing up as the best version of myself. And we all have bad days. So when those days do happen, I will go and ask for support, or I will go and get support from crystals, and I might sage, and I might put some candles on, and I might work with whatever element that I need to in that moment. So I don't have to do it as often. What might be interesting for people to know is that I actually don't meditate. I find it really difficult. And I want to share that because I think there's a lot of people who just assume that to develop your intuition, you have to meditate. Now, a lot of people actually do need to meditate. I have never really had an issue connecting with the other side because I was born with this, and I really don't know any different. However, there's a lot of people out there that can't get out of their heads, and they don't know how to segregate, what's happening in the here and now and their own emotions versus what spirit is trying to give them to be able to pass on messages for their clients. So for some people, they need that. When I go to meditate, basically it's like a frenzy on the other side. Like spirit's like, oh, she's here, she's taken X amount of time out of her calendar, perfect, let's go grab her, and we're going to tell her all the things that we need her to do so that she can get onto her purpose even faster. And now I try to slow down with how many meditations that I do, but I am religious on really doing a lot of breath work. So I do this more so to help regulate my nervous system and make sure that the body as a vessel knows that it's safe, it's secure, because as empaths, when we're dealing with so many emotions, and really the client could be anywhere with their vibration, the body doesn't really know what's theirs and what's yours. It just knows that it's experiencing it. So I make sure to really take care of my vessel. I'm sorry, my body. I call it my vessel. So that I know that I am not just nurturing my mind, but I'm also taking care of my body and my soul in the process. So it's more of a daily way of life for me that I do prepare to go into readings, if that makes sense.
Well, let's tie this one in a ribbon and
Yeah.
let's do the reading. We'll do like an evaluation, I guess. Maybe you could interview me about the experience. I'm not sure.
Cool.
See what
Okay, yeah,
happens.
that would be really interesting. I think that would be a lot of fun. Just really quickly, just in case for anybody who is listening and wanted to know, how do I prep my energy for a reading? So something really simple and quick that anyone can do is just do a prayer. Power of prayer is just incredible. And one of the things that I do is that I'll call in my angels, I'll call in my loved ones, I'll call in my spirit team, and I will ask that they bless and cleanse my energy with love and light. I ask that they allow anything that is blocking me or stopping me from my path to be recognized by the reader so that I have the awareness to let that go, and or remove it from my path, remove it from my energy, so that I don't even have to deal with the block if it's unnecessary to deal with it. And then I just tell my loved ones, I'm like, if anybody wants to pop in and say hello, you can. And I actually don't like to know about my love life. So I will tell my spirit team and my spirit people, this is one area that I don't want to know. This is sacred, and I want to be surprised in my love life. I know so much already about my path ahead, because of what spirit shares with me. So when I go to have readings, typically it's just a confirmation that, you know, what I'm sensing is correct. The path that I'm going down is right. And if there are any kind of loopholes or there's any blind spots that I'm not recognizing right now, I will go and have a reading for that purpose, so that I can just set myself up in the best position in life as possible. So I hope that helps any of you guys that were wondering what we should do. Quick, super simple, nice and easy. Let's have some fun and dive into your reading, shall we?
I love that. That was so insightful.
Oh, good, babe. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.